Hello, greetings. So this is going to be a video about a Gorean topic, and this is a topic I see pop up in the various forums and message boards I frequent. And it is the self-claimed free woman who says that I have a problem living out being a free woman because I don't hate slaves. And comments like that just makes me go like this. When did hating slaves become a big part of, yeah. Now, of course, if we look at some of the source material for the Gore books, including very shallowly some of the works of Nietzsche, mainly Zarathustra, you might find that the idea of celebrating slaves as much as many within the lifestyle today do might not exactly be what is intended. However, this is of course not what people mean when they say this. What I mean is that in the books, free women frequently hate slaves. And here's the problem. The Gore books are fiction. They are science fiction novels, not very good ones at that. However, within these pretty B-rated science fiction novels, it's possible to find a philosophy that you then can build on and create a lifestyle of. However, just copying everything in the books isn't following the philosophy. Let me try to explain it this way. Let's say you have somebody who is very, very fascinated by Jedi's from Star Wars. Now, if they get a brown bathrobe and run around with a painted green stick, pretending it's a lightsaber, and say they come from Coruscant, that is trying to copy as much as possible from the movies, and it's not really living out any philosophy. It is trying to copy the trappings. However, there are people who see that, okay, the philosophy behind the Jedi's are based on several Asian concepts, and that the way they are mixed together and presented in Star Wars is what's right for them. So they try to copy that philosophy and add that to their everyday lives. That would be the same as what Gorean lifestylers do, or at least what they should do. Now, there's a lot of things in the Gore books that you can't copy because it's on an alien planet. I have, for example, seen very few tarns looking out of my window, and I'm not very concerned about being snatched up by a giant eagle when I cross a bridge. So it would make things a bit more exciting. But I'm getting off topic. What you have to remember is, when you look at things like this, the world within the setting is very different. Therefore, quite a few things that are very important in those books will not be the same way in our real world. And when it comes to free women hating slaves, you have to look at a few factors there. 1. In the Gore books, free companionships are generally not started because of love. Generally, it is arranged marriages, and while the parties might come to appreciate one another, they generally doesn't have much choice in the union, especially not the woman. The ones that the man chooses are his slaves. And very often he will then run around with these slaves constantly, day out and day in, at least what they do in the books. And of course, then it's easy for the woman to get jealous. Now, could this happen in real life? Of course. I have known a few people where you have a household, you have a free woman, and you have slaves, and there are jealousies. However, it's just as common as that it is the other way around, that it is the slave that is jealous of the free woman, or if there's several slaves in the household, that they are jealous of one another. Because the situation is very different. Very often, at most actually of relationships I know of, where you have a man who has a free woman, a free companion, and then get a slave, he and his free companion has agreed on it. While it very often is the slave who then hoping for this big romance and doesn't get it, that gets bitter. Now, the other factor in the books is that it is basically that free women are extremely sexually repressed. Basically, a free woman expressing about any kind of sexuality is likely to become enslaved. And very often, when you very much start to repress something in yourself, you get extremely aggressive against it. Look, for example, at people. If you look at the people that are the most homophobic, a few years down the line, will come out of the closet. So, yeah, clearly there the free women see basically activity they would possibly want to engage in themselves, but they can't. And therefore they convince themselves it's wrong, and therefore, of course, anybody that does it is horrible. Another matter within the books is sexual economics. Now, this is a big topic that I'm just gonna scratch the surface of here, but basically the concept is this. In a patriarchal setting, like Gore, women's um, economics, if you want, basically her the way she gets ahead in the world is by selling what she has to men. And what she has is one, companionship, two, a womb to carry his children, and three, sex. In return for providing these things, he provides safety and material comforts to her. This, of course, is putting it very simply, but you get the point. Now, if you look at our real world, the people that are most into slut shaming are generally women. Because while this concept of social economics and sexual economics is not as prevalent today, where women can have their own jobs, where women are independent, there are still traces of it. And basically what it means is that if you expect a home, a steady income, to be protected and so on, you expect that kind of commitment to give this man sex and companionship and so on. But then there are a woman who gives it up for free, or for a lot less than you have, then of course you will get annoyed. There is the same as I make soaps and I plan to start selling these aromatherapy soaps eventually. If somebody made exactly the same soaps as me and gave them away, of course I would be a bit pissed at them, because then nobody would buy my soaps. And in Gore it works a little bit the same, because basically free women have almost zero rights. The rights come with whatever men she's associated with. And to gather the interest of this man, she of course then offers companionship, a womb for his children, and sex. However, a man with coin can buy companionship and sex from a woman on any market, and that will create tension between free women and slaves. However, in a real life or in relationship, the situation is very different. Then you have two people who has entered into a relationship where the woman can easily go out and get a job herself. And while the man might rule the household, if she is not happy, she can leave, she can get a job. And generally, like I said, in most cases, if the household is increased with a slave, the free woman agrees to it. The situation is very different. And of course, you also have to add that in the fictional universe of Gore, all women dreams about being slaves. And such seeing that these slave girls get to live out that dream, the free woman gets insanely jealous. However, that point doesn't really make much sense because the reason why these free women can't then just become slaves is because it's extremely risky on Gore. You might get killed, you might get sold off and used for sea monster bait. You never know. In our day and age, and for lifestylers, it's not that much of a risk. If you want to be a slave, go on to Color Me, make yourself a profile, and find yourself a master. Simple as that. You don't need to be insanely jealous of the Kachiras. And therefore, while I can definitely see that there be could be tension between a free woman and a slave living in the same household. It isn't like an automatic, you're a free woman, you hate all slaves. I mean, you just see red. It's your berserk button, slave rage. It doesn't work that way. And even within the Gore books, it's not presented as a positive thing. It's not presented as something that lifestylers who are trying to live by the philosophy should emulate. I mean, there are several scenes where free women are very kind to slaves, and that is presented as positive. There's one scene in particular, I can't right now remember which book it is, but anyway, you have this noblewoman, and she runs around in a tavern and serves the men drinks together with the slaves to show that she doesn't think that she's above them, and it's presented as extremely positive. So the hatred of slaves are not considered a positive thing. It's not something to emulate. Meaning, you can very easily be a free woman and not hate slaves. I mean, why do people get these ideas into their heads? It would be the same as it's one scene. It's one of the earliest books where basically I think it might be Marauders, but I'm not completely sure. Anyway, Tarl and one of the I think it might be Samus. Anyway, they're talking, and then the native Gorean says, "Well, many Gorean men they start shedding tears over the beauty of nature. Are you then gonna say I can't be a Gorean free man because I generally don't cry over forests?" living by the Gorean the Gorean philosophy does not mean you have to copy every little thing in the books. It means you have to try to read past the fiction, find the philosophy within the books, and live by that. Incorporate that into your life on Earth. It doesn't mean that anything in the books, good or bad, copy it. The best way to be a Gorean is copying it. Put glue a few extra legs on your cats. I mean, then it looks like a sleen. Go and write Velo bird on every chicken you can find. I mean, this doesn't make you more Gorean. Basically, finding the philosophy in it, living by that makes you Gorean. And by the philosophy, no, free women are not required to hate slaves. So yeah, that is what I wanted to say. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Blessed be.